Yeah, I put my dad in the street against a heavyweight.
I've gone back to the dad, I've punched him a few more times.
5 blokes outside my front door, can you come and help
One
me?
hell of a fucking story, so stay tuned.
Andrew McCART, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. You already know I'm always delighted to be joined by Mr. Adam Smith. Adam, before we talk about the fight on Saturday night, you're at Anfield Stadium, you're pit side, you're a massive Liverpool fan. How much does that mean to you?
It means everything, you know. I have to pinch myself every time I come here and do something regards work. I mean, I don't know whether you and I consider what we do as work. It's what we do is just, it's so enjoyable and we're so passionate about it. And I'm a passionate Liverpool fan, have been since I was a little boy, and I stood on the cop for many years, and I used to come and wait for the players to come out and get their autographs. So for me, it's very, very special coming back to this place, and it's a wonderful city, and I love Liverpool, I love Anfield, I love everything about this place because the people are real, the people are going through a difficult time at the moment, and it's up to us to try and help out and you know, put the role models like Natasha Jonas, and you heard what Fraser Clark said, Liam Smith, fighters like that who've dedicated their life to the business, and you know, hopefully the city can sort of, you know, rebuild, because it's such a great place. It's full of charisma and passion, and as I said, real life, and I love it at Liverpool, and I love coming here. My family are all Reds, and my kids are mad Liverpool fans, and people ask, you know, you live in London, you know, you don't have a Scouse accent, you know, what's the link to Liverpool? Well, you know, my mum went out with a Scouser for many years, and he got me into it, and I just love the club, and I've loved it ever since I was a kid, and it's 4 hours to come up here to see a game, but you know what, that's just been part of what I've done, and I love it, and I've handed that down to my kids, and yeah, I adore coming back here, and whether it's for football or whether it's for you know, press conferences like this or other things, then you know, there'll always be a sort of, you know, a slight nervous tension, you know, an anticipation of coming to this great venue, because it's there's nowhere like this in the world.
Well, that being said, I will talk about bringing a big fight night here, but there's a big fight night happening on Saturday night at the M&S Bank Arena. I keep calling it the Echo Arena, M&S Bank Arena. Liam Smith against Hassan Mwanganyo, I believe I said his name wrong there, but I do apologise. But again, tough opponent. We've seen him here on the shows again against Sam Eglinton. Last fight out, he stopped Ndongo as well. We stopped Eglinton in the second round, so a little yardstick there for people who don't know who Hassan is. Tough fight for Liam, potential for asking.
Yeah, it is. Everything's tough now for Liam Smith. I mean, you mentioned sort of the fight is at the M&S Arena. I would love to bring a fight to Anfield. I know Eddie Hearn has tried before and may well do with Callum. I'd love to see Liam fight here. I think Anfield is ready for a big fight. And of course, the city is buzzing with boxing. As far as Liam goes, a huge signing for boxer. I think Liam's got plenty left after that performance against Jesse Vargas. You know, recently here in Liverpool against Anthony Fowler as well. He was unlucky abroad too. I think that he has just got a burning ambition and a desire to have the biggest fights now. And I think I see him a little bit like when Carl Froch came to Sky. Carl was with us in the early days, and then he came back at the late end. We missed a chunk of his career. We missed a lot of Liam's career. But I see a great sort of Indian summer, a couple of years where Liam can fight, you know, in the big battles that he wants to. Chris Eubank Jr. obviously is the aim, I think, if Chris gets through Connor and Liam gets through a potential banana skin on Saturday with somebody who's unbeaten in his last 10, who punches hard. Yeah, Liam should get through, and Chris should get through as well, and that'll be a fantastic fight to have before Christmas. But I think, you know, Ben Shalom has made a promise to Liam, and I have as well, because, you know, we've known the family a long time, and that is to make sure Liam Smith gets big fights in this deal, and I'll be doing everything I can to try and make that happen, because we want him on Sky Sports. He's a huge name, and he's a great fighter and a great guy, and you know, we've had a long history with the Smith brothers, and you know, we had Callum on recently, obviously in Saudi, who was terrific again. He's closing in on that sort of world light heavyweight title shot, which he'll deserve. And you know, the slightly bigger brother Liam, who's always done things his way, I think still has some really big nights ahead of him. So I'm really excited about his next couple of years.
Charles got all 4 of the belts. Now, you mentioned there that Eubank Junior fight here. Is that the only fight you can bring here for Liam, or can it be a vacant world title fight, or does it have to be that big Chris Eubank all British clash to get a fight here at Anfield?
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, would an all British clash against Chris Eubank, is that an arena, is that a stadium show? Depends on the card, depends on everything. I just think, I was at Goodison obviously for Tony Bellier's Dream Night, and that was many years ago. I think there's something about obviously the revival at Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, and I think that there's so many Liverpool fans as well who are fighters. I just think that Anfield will turn up for a boxing night. I think if we manage to sink it with a Premier League, a Premier win, a title win, and that's very difficult this season. It'll be hard again with City and everyone else, but that'll be amazing. But I don't think we could do it during the season. I think it would have to be sort of the back end, and maybe it's a spring fight. And I'm sure that Eddie will be looking to bring Callum here, maybe in a big fight with Batebiev or Bivol or something like that. But I think, if there's a big enough fight, maybe it's an all British clash. Maybe it is a Eubank Smith, and then you'd really have to have some fantastic, fights on the card too. But yeah, look, I mean, I dream and I want to do this at Anfield. I've always wanted to, and now Eddie's with DAZN, maybe they'll get there first. But I tell you what, if there's a fight night at Anfield, I want to be here, whoever's doing it, whatever money. I want to be at the Conor Benn Chris Eubank fight. So maybe I'll be asking Eddie or Calla to get me and hopefully a ticket for that night. But it's a special place, it's a special city. But any thoughts of Liam fighting here will go out the window if he loses on Saturday.
You do know you'll have Paul Smith and Stephen Swifty coming out of retirement if you do bring a fight here.
Well, Paul and I were reminiscing about he had a press conference here for the Tony Quigley fight back in 2009. It's a long time coming, and obviously the dream was to get when I was working with Eddie, the dream was to get all Smith brothers on the card. Paul's son now boxes as well, and so I tell you what, if it's in a year or two's time, who knows? And Stephen doesn't look in bad shape. I think Paul's got a bit of timber to go. Look, I think it'll be very difficult now. But look, there's and David Price, of course, is retired. But there's still a lot of fighters in this city. A
lot of young talent, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of young talent. It just obviously you have to get a headline act and you have to get the right fights to make it viable. But I think Liverpool will turn up. I think Anfield will turn up to a fight night. I think Billy Hogan has always talked about getting it done here, and Phil Dutton and some of the staff are very pro it, and I think that hopefully one day Anfield will be lit up with boxing, and not just for a press conference.
Well, that's the thing. A stadium fight is a spectacle in itself, and to have one here in Liverpool with the fan base that they have in terms of football, boxing, they always come out to support their own. Natasha Jonas, another Liverpool fighter who's fighting in the chief support there, looking to become unified world champion. You said yourself she wanted to become world champion. Now she's got that. Now she's got that greed. Maybe set herself another goal to become unified.
I was messing with Tasha. She's got a great sense of humour. She is being really greedy here. She said to me many months ago. I've obviously known Tash a long time. I was there when she fought Katie Taylor back in the Olympics, and a wonderful, amateur and Miss GB, and she's done so much for this sport. And I think Ben always says, Tash has been unlucky, and Katie sort of took the limelight a little bit, and she had that loss against Viviane Obernauf, which took her back, but that wonderful fight in Eddie's Garden against Terry Harper, where I felt she won that, and obviously she pushed Katie to the wire in an absolute classic fight in Manchester. She has been unlucky, and she said to me that she wants to win a world title before she fully envelops coming to our side, because of course she's part of the Sky Talent broadcast team now. We commentate with her most weeks, and she's getting very, very good at that. And I think that she won that world title in Manchester, and it's a bit like when Johnny won a world title. I said to Johnny Nelson years ago, I said, you could become a TV guy because you've been had this amazing career where you've been sort of at the bottom, at the top, you sort of relate to different people, you've got great charisma, you'd be fantastic on telly. But he's like, I've got to win a world title. And he's like, well, he won the world title against Carl Thompson. I was like, right, now come and join and be a TV guy. And he went on and reigned for 7.5 years, and it took a little longer. And I don't think Tasha maybe has 7.5 years. Probably that's not in her wish list. But she's obviously won that, and she's hungry for more. And now she's got this unification match. And we also had a bit of a battle because I wanted her in London next week, and she wanted to fight in Liverpool. And I think what's happened in the city in the last couple of weeks, I think it's really poignant and special that she fights here. So I'm pleased about that. But she's got a very tough fight, and she's just a fantastic role model, isn't she? And the whole family is steeped in boxing and football, and I think she's terrific. So we wish her well. But obviously, if she's beaten by a fantastic fighter in Patricia, she's unbeaten, and she's had wins over Hannah Rankin and others, and she's coming to upset the show here in Liverpool, and she'll want to take both titles back to Sweden. So it's a tough fight for Tash.
Definitely. As I spoke to Tash just before I spoke to you here, Adam, and I said to her about setting herself new goals, world champion, and then I spoke about unified and undisputed, and she said, yeah, I want them all. I want to be number one. There should only be one fighter, so I want all the belts. And so she seems like she's setting herself a higher goal. So the Hannah Rankin, Terry Harper winner next, if she comes through this one on Saturday. Have you spoke to Hannah about Tasha about that and becoming undisputed?
I spoke to Hannah as well. I mean, look, they all want the biggest and best fights, and they're great. Terry as well, they're great women, and they're fantastic ambassadors. And look what's happening next week in London. We've got the first all ever female card in the UK, topped by one of the great fights in recent years with Savannah and Clarissa, and Michaela coming over as well from America against Alicia. They're just a wonderful night with Caroline and Lauren and Caris and April and Ebony and everyone on. I just think it's fantastic, and that's what the Jane Couches, the Katie Taylors, the Terry Harpers, the Tasha Jonases, the Chantel Camerons have all done. And I hope that they're all there next week, because it's a special time, and I think that it's just pushing them forwards, and I think they should all fight each other. There's no reason why Hannah, the winner of Hannah and Terry, can't fight the winner of Saturday night, and it's terrific. They're all earning money, they're in great fights, and some of these fights are the best fights we've seen in the last 5 years. I mean, I mentioned Tasha and Terry, or Tasha and Katie. I mean, tell me better fights, and they were fantastic fights. So yeah, it's great, and it's fantastic that they are having their time and they are making money, and they're getting the limelight that they deserve. And we are so behind what's going to happen next week. It's going to be everywhere, all over Sky Sports and Sky News. It's going to feel like the biggest event of the year, and in many ways it is.
I'm looking forward to it myself, to be honest. Adam, I just want to touch on this because you've been in the boxing game a long time. I do apologise, but everyone loves a British title fight. Everyone loves a British title. Seems like they produce the best little fighters when it comes to action, entertainment. Now we've got Dan Aziz against Shakan Peters. Talk to me about that fight and how great a fight is for the fans.
It's a really important fight, and it's a really important night for the pair of them, because they're going to kickstart our show. I think there's something very special about the Lonsdale belt, and it's been something that we at Sky for many years, and sometimes where we didn't have those world title fights, it was often about the British title. I think straight away to Edinburgh for Alex Arthur and Michael Gomez, or to Manchester for the Jamie Moore and Matt Macklin fight, or to Coventry, was it, when Derek Roach fought Scott Dixon. These British title fights, which are just etched in our memories and our history. There's something special about that Lonsdale belt. I think in a way the English title has brought us some really good action in the last 2 or 3 years as well. But I think it's really important for Ben and for Boxer and for us to have these really sort of 50-50 British title fights on, and that's what this is. The current champion against the former champion, different contrasting styles, very much respectful. The pair of them are high on they're good adverts for boxing, and I think it's a really intriguing fight. It's something that's been talked about a while. We've waited to find the right home for it. I think this is a great home for it on a big night, our first of the autumn, and yeah, I can't wait.
I do want to cast your mind back to 2 weeks ago in Saudi Arabia. I don't believe Umar or Kugan got your post-fight reaction to Joshua's loss to Usyk, but for you, just looking at the aftermath and the passionate rant or meltdown, however you want to call it, from Joshua, what was your assessment of all that?
Look, I think now the dust has settled. I think that we've got to remember, firstly, what a great fight it was. At the time, I headed straight out, actually. Apologies for not doing the interviews, but I was on holiday and I went back. My brother was getting married in America, so I had a long trip. But yeah, and a long time to think about it, I suppose, in the last sort of week or two. I think a lot of things. I think Alexander Usyk has just cemented his place as in history. I mean, if he hadn't already, as a unified undisputed cruiserweight champion, and so close now, one step away from becoming an undisputed champion. He's not only proven himself at heavyweight, but he's retained his titles, deservedly so. He was terrific on the night, and he had to come through some rough moments. Anthony Joshua was absolutely fantastic. He was much better than he was at Tottenham. Really good game plan. I thought he was just so focused. I thought he gave everything to it. In that 9th round, you wonder whether he could even stop Usyk, and the fact that Usyk had to just dig so deep and come back in that 10th and turn it on its head again, and that shows the mark of a special fighter and a top man and a champion who came from behind. But it was a competitive fight all the way through. Really enjoyed it, and yeah, look, for me, Usyk won, and Usyk deserves the applause, but also Anthony deserves a huge amount of respect for boxing so well, and he's absolutely shown how far he can go still, and I'd like to see him back in the ring fairly soon. I think there's huge fights out there for him. I thought it was a real win. The aftermath obviously was disappointing on the night. It was difficult to watch. There's been a lot of talk about it, whether it was a rant, a breakdown, emotional, whatever. I mean, how do I take it? I think that Anthony's a competitor, he's a gladiator, and he's had a huge amount of pressure on his shoulders for a long time. I think what we've got to remember, he's done so much good for British sport, not just boxing. He's been an utter role model. He's been fantastic for boxing for so many years, a poster boy. He's brought these big, we talked about stadium fights earlier in the interview, he's brought how many stadium fights, you just lose count, and he's been so good for boxing. He became a world heavyweight champion. He had that amazing night with Vladimir Klitschko. He lost to Andy Ruiz. He wrote that wrong. He became a 2-time heavyweight champion. So he's not a 3-time heavyweight champion, and he came up against Alexander Usyk, one of the great fighters of the last 20 years, who, along with Tyson Fury, were born to box. And I think, amidst the sort of the confusion afterwards, and Fraser was right in the studio. The champion should have had his moment to speak first, and all of that. I get that. He had huge respect for Alexander straight away after the bell. Maybe he heard the judge's score that that one of the judges had it to Anthony. I don't personally agree with that, but it's subjective and everyone has their opinion. Maybe he heard that and thought, I deserve to win the fight, and then reacted in that way. Maybe he was still in the moment, and maybe he was just emotional. What he actually came out with was, there was praise for Usyk in there, and also he was basically saying, look, I've only done this since I was 18, and the others have been boxers all their life. So it wasn't the right thing to do at the time, and I think he's obviously said that, and I don't know how much he remembers of it, and obviously, going forward, he'll want to sort of address that, and maybe. But I mean, I think sort of give him a break. AJ has been so good for our sport, and for me, he was caught up in something which maybe he couldn't control at the time, and he grabbed the mic, and it was a mistake. But ultimately, some of the things in there you sort of could understand, and what for me, he was great in the fight, and he's been an amazing role model, and as part of our fabric, our furniture at Sky, we wish him nothing but success going forward. He's been absolutely brilliant. I thought it was a brilliant display. No disgrace to get beaten by an absolute superstar of the sport, which Alexander Usyk is. And let's not take anything away from Usyk's night as well, because with everything that had gone on in Ukraine and what he'd had to go through as well, phenomenal to put on that sort of performance. So I think boxing was the winner. I think it was great, and it was a shame what happened afterwards, but let's concentrate on what happened in the ring. AJ now goes on, and he should be applauded for what he did, and I think he's got a lot of great fights left in him, and Usyk goes into the Fury fight. So for me, boxing was the winner, and my heart went out to both of them, because it was a terrific performance and a great night for the sport, and I felt for AJ in those moments afterwards. I felt for Alexander too. It was just a shame, but they're fighters, and I thought Matt Chris's column in Boxing News was absolutely spot on. They're fighters. They're a different breed to us. They should be excused moments, and how many moments did Mike Tyson have? How many moments? I saw Hrgovic's performance on the night, and I was thinking it's a really odd performance, and I was thinking back to Oliver McCall and Andrew Galotta, and fighters are different, and sometimes they act in different ways in the ring, and we love it when they're all sort of nice and role models, or we love it when they're the bad guy. But actually, if they lose the plot every now and again, or they do something different, Tyson, I remember after he fought Lou Savarese, he said he wanted to eat Lennox Lewis's kids. He was trying to knock out the referee. is that the Mike Tyson of 20 minutes later or 2 hours later? Maybe not. And I think that sometimes we've got to cut fighters slack. So I agree totally. I thought Fraser was fabulous in the studio, saying that, look, if he was there, he would have got the microphone away from him. I think, you know, he felt for him, and he also said that it was Alexander's moment, and I get that. And I was sitting there with Matt, and we didn't really know what to say about the AJ speech because you sort of wanted it over. But ultimately, I think we could all understand in a way what pressure these guys go through, and he is a role model to kids, and of course he probably regrets the words he said, but ultimately I think that, you know, that regret will be the fact that he was just in an emotional state, and AJ's been so good for so many years that we shouldn't forget that, and he's got all of us with him as he goes forward.
Definitely. I do want to touch on one more thing before I let you go on, because I know none of me is behind me, but obviously you talk about like pressure and becoming friends with fighters and whatnot, but for yourself and Matt in the commentary booth as well, when you're watching a fight and you know a fighter more than the other one, and you see on Twitter about this guy being biased in the scorecards, unofficial scorecards, favour one fighter because he might have been a Sky longer, what do you say to all that?
Look, I think the thing about social media and the thing about boxing is that there's so much debate. Everybody thinks that their card is right, or everybody thinks that they're right, and to be honest, the only thing that matters is what actually happens in the fight with the two fighters and the three judges at the end of it. You know, we've always said we're totally unofficial. We're there to call what we see. We're totally unbiased, and that word bias keeps sort of coming back, and it's like, oh, they're so biased to one and not the other. You know, I don't know how many more times I have to say, when I pick up a mic and when Matt picks up the mic, and if he was sitting here right now, I'd tell you exactly the same. We don't care who wins. It is of no importance when we're in that zone. Okay? If you look at it and say, oh, AJ was with us for so long and we wanted AJ to win, but he loses to Andy Ruiz. So are we saying, oh, Anthony Joshua, oh, he shouldn't have lost that. It was only the short notice. It was all about, you know, Andy got lucky. Did we say that? You look back at that, I don't think so. I think what we said was that Andy Ruiz was the first Mexican heavyweight champion. What a night for Andy Ruiz. AJ's got to rebuild. Okay? When the mic's down, the dust settles, and it's a business, you think about what it means for the business and how AJ can come back. When we pick up the mics, whoever it is, we're close to AJ, we're close to Usyk. I'm close to Natasha Jonas. She works for us, for crying out loud. She works for us. She gets beaten on Saturday night, she gets beaten. When we pick up the mic, there is no bias at all. If she gets beaten by Patricia, and Patricia, masterclass is her, Savannah Marshall was my scholar at Sky. If she gets licked by Clarissa Shields next week, she gets beaten. If she wins, she wins. There is no bias from us. You say that we get close. I think we get close to a lot of fighters. Alexander Usyk has been with us for the last 3 or 4 years. We're very close to his team. AJ's been with us since he turned pro. We're very, very close to his team. So if we look at that and we're thinking, oh, you know, AJ, he's not on Sky anymore. He's on DAZN. What, we want him to lose? That's absolutely ludicrous. Right? Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua fought in Saudi, and our job was to call the fight as we saw it. My job is to describe it. Matt's is to unofficially score it or say what he thinks and why it's happening, and he's the expert because he's been in the ring. That's what we do. Some people say we're biased to Usyk. Oh, we want Usyk to win because AJ's left his zone. It's utter rubbish. Some people say we're biased towards AJ. Why are we giving AJ the credit? Well, we can't be biased towards both of them. You know, ultimately, there is no bias. You know, you can hear it from after Josh Taylor or Jack Catterall, and people say, oh, you know, Josh Taylor, everyone thought Josh Taylor won it, but actually there's a few people who think, actually, everyone thought Jack Catterall won it, and then there's a few people that say, actually, you didn't give Josh any credit. Well, we called it as we saw it. That's all. We're not right, we're not wrong. The 3 judges might disagree with us. They might agree with us. That's for them. And every single fan is entitled to their opinion. That's what makes this sport so great, that they've all got an opinion. They all think that they can score it, they know whatever. And maybe in some cases they're better than Matt and I. I'm not saying they're not. It's a debate, it's a subjective thing. We want everyone to have their say. But ultimately, what I want to clear up, and I keep doing it on every interview that I do, and I'm sure Matt does the same, it's not, there is no bias when we pick up the mic. Okay, there is no bias. Whether it's, we think, but did AJ fight the fight of his life? He was absolutely brilliant in there. He was competitive. You know, arguably he won a number of rounds. He had a chance at the end of the 9th round to win the fight. Usyk turned the tables, and Usyk proved why he is who he is. Slightly superior, no no problem with AJ losing that fight. He gave everything to it. And Alexander Usyk remains the WBA Super, the WBO, the IBF. You have to think, don't you? Tyson Fury's out there with the WBC title, and that's the fight we want to see. If AJ had won, we'd have gone with AJ has won in dramatic fashion. There is no being close to a fighter. It doesn't come into it when we have that period. When we pick up that mic and that bell goes, it's up to them what they do, and we call it as we see it, and we always will. No question about that. And people can say what they say about that, but if people, that Matt said to me, oh, people are saying online, oh, we were biased towards Usyk. Here we go again. Fine, if people think that, fine. Then he's going, oh, everyone's saying we're biased towards Anthony Joshua. Well, we can't be biased to both, can we? People are seeing it as they sort of want to see it. And I don't have any problem with that. Everyone's got an opinion, and I'm not saying ours is right at all. We just are there to call what we see for Sky. We call it, we see it, and there is never any bias when we pick up that mic. I promise you on my kids' lives, there is no bias, okay? Look at me on Saturday night with Tasha Jones. If she wins comfortably, great. If she loses and gets turned over, you listen to what we say. There is no bias. Afterwards, we can all be friends, we can all hug, whatever. Especially someone like AJ and Usyk, who we've got so much respect for both of them. Eddie all week saying, oh, you know, Sky want Usyk to win. Absolutely not. Not as a commentator. We don't want anyone to win. We don't care. What happens in business down the line happens in business beyond a fight. When we're commentating on a fight and calling a fight, we will not be doing our job professionally and properly if we didn't call it absolutely on the level. We call it as we see it, not as anyone wants us to see it. And that will always happen. As when we pick up a mic, that will always happen. I promise you that.
Adam, I believe you. And that's probably, I know, like you said, you've been here 20 plus minutes for me, and I know other guys are patient with me, but thank you so much as always for doing the Spyful TV, and I'll see you at the weigh-in tomorrow.
No problem.
Thanks very much, Adam. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Yeah, I put my dad in the street against a heavyweight.
I've gone back to the dad. I've punched him a few more
There's
times.
5 blokes outside my front door. Can you come and help
One
me?
hell of a fucking story, so stay tuned.